toxic fog killed thousands. London, 1952. A city still scarred by the Blitz, struggling to rebuild, its spirit resilient but weary. The air, perpetually damp and gray, held the familiar tang of coal smoke, the lifeblood of industry, the comfort of a warm hearth. But this was different. A strange stillness hung in the air, a premonition almost, before the fog descended. It wasn't the usual London pea souper, the kind that added a touch of Gothic romance to the cobbled streets. This was thicker, denser, almost sentient. It crept into homes, coated everything in a grimy film, and carried a biting, acrid smell that stung the nostrils. A smell that hinted at something far more sinister than just fog. The first day passed with grumbles and resigned acceptance. Londoners, used to the fog, simply adjusted. Theaters continued their performances, albeit to dwindling audiences who braved the treacherous streets. Cars crawled along, guided by pedestrians waving newspapers, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of headlights swallowed by the gloom. But beneath the surface of normalcy, a growing unease stirred. People coughed more, their chests tight. The air tasted metallic, almost poisonous. And then the deaths began, a spike in respiratory illnesses, dismissed initially as a seasonal flu outbreak, exacerbated by the weather. But the numbers kept climbing, an alarming trend that couldn't be ignored. Dr. John Pemberton, a young physician working in a crowded East End hospital, was among the first to raise the alarm. He noticed the sheer volume of patients, their lungs congested, struggling to breathe. He meticulously documented their symptoms, noting the common thread, the thick, yellow smog that had blanketed the city for days. His reports, initially met with skepticism by his superiors, painted a grim picture. This wasn't just a bad bout of fog. This was a public health crisis of unprecedented scale. He began to suspect that the usual cocktail of smoke and fog had been amplified by something else, something unknown, something deadly. Rumors started to swirl. Some whispered of secret wartime experiments gone wrong. Others blamed the unusually cold weather, which had led to increased coal burning. The newspapers, initially downplaying the severity of the situation, began to report on the rising death toll, fueling public anxiety. The government, slow to react, insisted there was no cause for panic, attributing the deaths to pre-existing conditions aggravated by the fog. But the reality on the ground was far more terrifying. Morgues overflowed, undertakers struggled to keep up with the demand, and the city descended into a state of silent dread. As the death toll mounted, a team of scientists, led by Professor David Brunt, a prominent meteorologist, was tasked with investigating the cause of the killer smog. Initial findings pointed to the usual suspects: coal smoke, industrial pollution, and stagnant weather conditions. But something didn't quite add up. The sheer toxicity of the fog was far beyond what could be explained by these factors alone. Brunt suspected a catalytic agent, something that transformed the ordinary pollutants into a deadly concoction. His investigation led him down a rabbit hole of industrial processes, unregulated emissions, and a disturbing lack of oversight. The first major twist came with the discovery of high levels of sulfur dioxide in the smog. While sulfur dioxide was a known pollutant from coal burning, the concentrations were abnormally high, far exceeding anything previously recorded. Brunt's team traced the source to London's power plants, which were burning low-grade, high-sulfur coal in an attempt to conserve fuel during the post-war austerity. This inferior coal, combined with the weather conditions, had created a perfect storm of pollution, trapping the deadly gases close to the ground. But this was only part of the story. Further investigation revealed that the sulfur dioxide had reacted with particles in the air, forming sulfuric acid, a highly corrosive substance that irritated the lungs and caused severe respiratory damage. But the precise mechanism of this reaction remained a mystery. Then, a junior researcher, working late one night, stumbled upon an overlooked study from the 1930s. The study detailed how certain metallic particles, particularly those released from burning coal, could act as catalysts, accelerating the conversion of sulfur dioxide into sulfuric acid. The pieces began to fall into place. The low-grade coal, the stagnant weather, and the metallic particles had combined to create a deadly chemical reaction, transforming the ordinary fog into a lethal smog. But the true horror lay in the realization that this was not an unforeseen accident. The government had been aware of the dangers of burning high-sulfur coal, but had prioritized economic recovery over public health. The desire to keep the power plants running, to fuel the industries and heat the homes, had led to a catastrophic decision. The truth, however, was far more complex. While the high-sulfur coal was a major contributor, it wasn't the sole cause. A hidden factor, deliberately concealed by powerful industrial interests, played a crucial role. It was discovered that certain factories in the East End, operating under wartime exemptions, were releasing unregulated emissions containing metallic compounds, including iron oxide. These compounds, acting as potent catalysts, dramatically accelerated the formation of sulfuric acid in the smog, amplifying its toxicity. The revelation of the factory's role in the disaster sparked outrage and calls for accountability. But the government, under pressure from industry lobbyists, downplayed the significance of the unregulated emissions, focusing instead on the high-sulfur coal as the primary culprit. A scapegoat was needed, and the factories, shielded by powerful connections, were protected. The investigation was quietly shut down, the findings suppressed, and the focus shifted to implementing stricter regulations on coal burning. But the damage was done. The Great Smog had claimed thousands of lives, exposed the vulnerability of London's infrastructure, and revealed a disturbing disregard for public health. The official death toll was initially estimated at 4,000, but subsequent studies have suggested that the true number may have been closer to 12,000. The long-term health effects of the smog, including increased rates of respiratory illness and cancer, continued to plague Londoners for decades. In the aftermath of the disaster, the government finally took action to address air pollution. The Clean Air Act of 1956 was passed, introducing measures to reduce smoke emissions from homes and factories. Smokeless zones were established, and incentives were offered to homeowners to switch to cleaner fuels. The act was a landmark achievement, but it came at a terrible cost. The price of clean air had been paid in lives, in suffering, and in the erosion of public trust. The irony of the Great Smog is that it was a preventable tragedy. The dangers of air pollution were well known, but the pursuit of economic growth and industrial progress had taken precedence over public health, the government's failure to regulate emissions, its suppression of crucial information, and its willingness to prioritize industry interests over the well-being of its citizens had contributed to the disaster. The fog had lifted, but the stench of corruption and negligence lingered in the air. The legacy of the Great Smog extends far beyond the immediate tragedy. It served as a wake-up call, raising awareness about the devastating effects of air pollution and prompting significant environmental reforms. The Clean Air Act became a model for other countries, and the smog served as a stark reminder of the importance of environmental regulation and public health protection. Yet, even today, air pollution remains a major global challenge, claiming millions of lives each year. The Great Smog stands as a chilling testament to the consequences of unchecked industrialization and political negligence. While London has since cleaned up its air, the lessons of 1952 remain relevant. The invisible killer is still out there, in the smog-choked cities of the developing world, in the unregulated emissions of factories, and in the apathy of governments that prioritize profit over people. The story of the Great Smog is not just a historical tragedy. It's a warning, a reminder that the air we breathe is precious, and that its protection is a moral imperative. And perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Great Smog is the thought that it could happen again. Not necessarily in the same form, but in some new, unforeseen way. The complacency that allowed the smog to form in the first place, the willingness to sacrifice public health for economic gain. These are dangers that still exist today. The next environmental disaster may be lurking just around the corner, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the perfect storm of negligence and greed to unleash its deadly potential. The fog may have lifted, but the shadows remain.